Anyways, I'm sick of that flea bag you call a hotel. And I'm tired of waiting. All I do is wait. Wait! Wait!
Well, wouldn't you know it?
The year was 2011, and I was working as a funeral director in Los Angeles, specifically the Valley. I had this big empty office, mostly to myself. I scheduled all my own funeral arrangements and services, so that left me with a lot of empty time to mess around on Facebook. What a 2011 statement. Just can't get enough of that Facebook. To be fair, I still spend time on Facebook, just slightly less than I have a problem. For a period of 2 weeks, on my Facebook wall, my friends kept posting the same news story over and over. Mummified body of former Playboy Playmate found in her Benedict Canyon home. Everyone read this tragic story about the abandoned mummified body of a celebrity and thought of me. Which, to be fair, was a correct reading of the situation. I was obsessed with this story. I often drove home from work through Benedict Canyon to avoid the freeways. And I was just starting to publicly blog and write about dead bodies, the funeral industry, our fears of death, the strange obsession we have with dead celebrities. The story was right up my alley. At the start, I didn't know much about Yvette Vickers, the woman who had died. She was a B-movie bombshell from the 1950s and 60s. She was very briefly in the classic Sunset Boulevard and had bigger roles in the notoriously terrible Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and Attack of the Giant Leeches.
I'll take care of a woman like you, Louise.
Vickers posed for Playboy magazine in 1959. She had talent, looks, and an intense drive to succeed, but true Hollywood fame and fortune never came her way. She earned a living on the convention circuit, signing autographs and appearing as a cult movie icon. But as she grew older, she suffered from mental health issues and had reclusive tendencies. In her final years, she slipped through the cracks. By the spring of 2011, Susan Savage knew she had to investigate her neighbor Yvette's home. After all, Yvette had a history of mental health issues, paranoia, and the belief she was being stalked. Susan hadn't seen Yvette in ages, and her mail had been piling up. There were cobwebs on her mailbox, and the house had fallen silent. Susan was worried about Yvette. Susan walked the steps up to Yvette's tiny cottage at 10021 West Wanda Drive, stepping over moldy mail from Yvette's fans. Pushing through the window in the door, which was held in place by duct tape, Susan had a moment of terror when she saw a mop of blonde hair lying just inside the window. But luckily, it was just a wig. Susan entered the home and was met with evidence of a troubled, solitary life. Stains covered the walls, 8-foot-long cobwebs fell from the ceiling, big holes in the walls were covered with tarp, there was black mold everywhere, and ivy choked the interior. She called, "Yvette! Yvette!" but no answer. Susan was able to find a hole in the drywall and climb through to the stairs. Upstairs, she was met with a blast of hot air because the heater was on. She found the heater in the next room, a room full of crumpled paper, a refrigerator, a hot plate. Susan turned it off and continued to look around. A phone was off the hook, and clothes were strewn by a daybed. With the clothes was a leathery substance that was growing black spores. There was a mound of what looked like red jerky and another wig. But this time it wasn't a wig. Susan screamed and ran from the house. She had found Yvette. The medical examiner described Yvette Vickers' corpse as in a state of severe advanced decomposition/mummification when Susan found her. Only about 56 pounds of mummified remains remained of Yvette. So advanced was the decomposition and mummification that the coroner's office at first was unable to identify the sex of the corpse, let alone who it definitively was. Eventually, Yvette's remains were identified through dental records, and the cause of her death was determined to be cardiovascular disease. The experts speculate that Yvette had died from heart problems, and her corpse had been lying in her house on West Wanda Drive for approximately 9 months. In that time, her electricity had somehow never shut down, and the heater slowly mummified what little of her didn't decompose or get consumed by insects. No foul play was suspected. Yvette simply died alone and unnoticed in her home. At the time, I remember people being furious at her neighbors for not caring enough to check on Yvette. But this is LA. I've had neighbors I've lived next to for years, and even if I stopped seeing them around as much, I wouldn't feel comfortable barging in on them or reporting them to the police. People come and go all the time in LA, and most people don't really have that kind of smaller town or suburban relationships with their neighbors. If you do, you're the exception to the rule. I'm hoping this will be part of a larger series on the uniquely morbid celebrity stories that can only happen here in Los Angeles. We can't visit Yvette's dilapidated little house on West Wanda Drive because it has long since been sold for about $500,000, advertised as a real fixer-upper, and eventually torn down. Today, all that is left of Yvette Vickers are her cremated remains, which I believe are in the care of her half-brother Perry, who she wasn't close to. When this story broke, I thought about offering to provide the cremation for free through my funeral home, but then I read somewhere that Hugh Hefner had swooped in to pay for the cremation of the former Playmate. I'm not sure that's true or if it was just a rumor, but it was enough to stop me from offering. Before her house was torn down, Scott Michaels, an expert on the murders, deaths, and dark side of Hollywood, visited the house with a camera. The camera pans around the filthy rooms covered in grime, cobwebs, and dust. Michaels is thrilled when he finds Yvette's medicine cabinet is still full. He later proudly produces items he nabbed from Vickers' home. Her mail slot, some metal bells she hung on a gate, Wet n Wild nail polish bottles. As far as filming and thinking about these stories, this light theft is not my style. I don't want to overstep the boundaries as someone who didn't know Yvette, says the woman who tried to offer her a free cremation. Okay. But I think it is worth exploring why we are so fascinated with dead celebrities. Why do we want to watch people find her nail polish bottle? Why does Yvette's tragic death make her nail polish bottle more macabre and more valuable? How do we talk about Hollywood mortality without the scandal and morbid rubbernecking? Or are we so removed that death feels like fiction? So celebrity death is just a continuation of the entertainment they provided in life. I don't know the answers yet, but let's investigate together. What other stories like Yvette's have fascinated you? This video was made with generous donations from death enthusiasts just like you. Good news, we have enough money from our paltry, demonetized YouTube AdSense to make another small donation, this time $3,000. One of the saddest aspects of Yvette's story is that she seemed to die completely alone. The fear of dying alone causes intense anxiety in people, and we know that the prospect of having your long-term beloved pet and companion at your side can ease that anxiety, even though often pets are immediately taken away from the dying, given away or brought to shelters. I've seen it happen once recently, and it's devastating. So our donation is to Pet Peace of Mind, a nonprofit that's training hospice and palliative care facilities to allow dying people to keep their pets with them, by their side, until they die. You shouldn't have to die alone if you don't want to. So for those of you who sit through ads on our videos, thank you. The few seconds you rolled your eyes at some credit card commercial made this donation possible. In a world where a YouTube channel has brought you the year of content and the year of action, in 2019 we bring you the year of ambition. Bigger, better, longer videos. Ask a Mortician will be back February 2019. Until then, this channel will go dark, pitch black, black as a tomb. Not like, the videos, it's YouTube, so they'll just be hanging out. They'll be there, obviously. But there won't be any new ones until February 2019. Year of Ambition. Coming soon. While we're gone, watch your specific favorite video 200 times and then share it with a friend who's never seen it and will be horrified by it. That's your assignment.